Okay, so I wanted to come to you here with a quick video, and this was hastily made here in the studio. It's just been an incredible day. But to give you an update on what we know so far behind the scenes of the Kerrville flooding. So, after having been through numerous things like this is one of the worst cases of flooding I think I have probably ever seen. And we're hearing that there's a lot of discussion from authorities all up and down the line talking about who knew what when. We don't need to discuss this right now. But the truth is, it is something that needs to be discussed. And it's not something that can easily be ignored. Now, I did find some documents, and I linked to this in my newsletter, which I'll put down in the description for you to read. Way back is 2016, May of 2016, officials were questioning this. They were talking about this, saying, hey, look, we need something. There needs to be an early warning system in place. There needs to be something there, right? Very little action was done. And this discussion took place about a year after some deadly floods that claimed 13 lives in, in Hays County, Texas, along the Blanco River. Now, flooding up here is pretty common. The sheriff at the time, Rusty Heerholzer, said that he could recall times where the river rose 25, 30 feet in just minutes. And he compared it to the Mississippi River, how it rises very slowly. The Guadalupe River rises very quickly. And this was a concern even back then. There were also warnings from commissioners talking about how other counties were installing sirens, stuff like this. Comal County, nearby Comal County, put in some sirens. They put in some first alert systems, things like that. These things were being discussed. Now, the problem here seems like is that Kerr County just never got around to it. And that's the tragedy here, that negligence, human negligence. For whatever reason, maybe an early warning system could have helped. That what needed to happen was that something like a cell phones, more people needed to have cell phone alerts. One of the problems is, and if you're familiar with these areas, sometimes cell phone signal is not the greatest. It's limited at best. If you've got any cell phone signal up there, so this signal could be very weak, and so it's not reliable. In 2016, they were pointing to this, saying that, a lot of the people, the population of Kerr County, and if you go back and I linked to some of this, they were talking about how one of the big concerns is that the code red couldn't get out to people in time, right? And that's a really important thing to remember. Something else here that's very key to remember is back in 2016 when they were discussing this, they were talking about how the population, I mentioned, doubles, right? During the summer months, right? And they were talking, and it really hits home when they say we have more summer camps along the Guadalupe River than any other place along the river. That's chilling. And a warning from one of the commissioners at the time says that we can spend a little money and save lives. That's all I'm saying, It was really chilling to read those words. They were a warning that turned out to be prophetic. So at the end of the day, when we're sitting here with almost 70 people have lost their lives, among them almost 24 children, many still unaccounted for, I think we have to ask ourselves this question. Why were the warning signs avoided? Now, there is some discussion here, and I think this is worth looking at down the road as we dig into the little intricacies of all of this. The state, TxDOT, has a system. The River Authority has a system, and some of the local governments have systems as well. And what the state system does is it sends out an alert to the state people, and you learn this by reading through this hearing, and I'm not saying just listening to it. I think we should read these things. We learned that the state system sends out an alert. They go out, start putting up barricades. The county or the states, the local government system, like in the city of Kerrville or Comel, wherever it is, updates local managers and says, hey, look, here's what you need to do. Okay, this is what's happening. The river authority, it just monitors the flow, not the height, right? So what happens here is if you read this meeting, and I'm going to quote here, one of the commissioners says, they don't play well together. Let that sink in. They don't play well together. To read this is he means that the systems don't communicate well together. They don't mesh together very well. And that could be a real problem. And as we look at this and as we dissect, do this, and I hate to use the term post-mortem, but that's kind of what it is. As we look at this post-mortem in the press, and us press people are going to hash this out, especially on the ones that are looking at the bigger picture, which is what some of us do. Some of us look at the bigger picture. Some of us look at the micro, macro, micro news, so on and so forth. Everybody has their own place. And there's a place for all of these conversations. And so I think that as we look at this, we need to take all of this into consideration for sure. No doubt this has been a horrible, horrible tragedy all the way around. Were there failures made? Absolutely. Are the politicians just not giving out all the information? Sure they are. They never do, right? But this is one of the things that we need to talk about, that we need to think about as time progresses. And we need to look at this, and we need to take all of this into consideration. Because if the state system isn't communicating with the county, does the county even have a system? Is the river authorities communicating? Whatever. Each one of these systems, I think, is designed for a very different purpose. And this is something that we need to have a discussion about, especially here in Texas, as we're seeing the population grow, as we're seeing more and more people move into these areas who may not know too much about these floods and how these floods work. This is a real serious issue. And I think it's an issue that we need to all take into consideration. So above all else, please keep everyone in your prayers, your thoughts, whatever it is. Thoughts and prayers seem so useless and overdrawn at a time like this. Remember, the politicians are in damage control. It's just the way it is. They want to avoid talking about these things. It's the way it's always been. It's the way it's always going to be. We need to remember that at some point in society, we switch from taking care of critical issues to taking care of social issues. And those social issues are not saving people's lives. That's a key takeaway here. So remember, keep everybody in your thoughts. And this is a horrible, horrible situation that's still unfolding. We'll keep you updated. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the newsletter. We'll keep you updated. Thanks a lot. We'll see you.